From right here, this is it, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 8, the Galaxy S26 Ultra, and still the latest and greatest iPhone, the 17 Pro Max. Which one's going to win this round of our camera comparison? We're going to find out. In the meantime, this video is not limited to just the cameras. We'll also get into performance and heat control. Without further ado, the design and display. Right, the Sony. There are actually quite a few classic design elements which have made a comeback, and again, we're not talking about the microSD card slot. They've added eSIM this year. The side-mounted fingerprint sensor, which doubles as the power button, is here and improved. The two-steps camera shutter button still there, right where it belongs. And the little white dot here, right next to the LED flash, I'll have to double check if it's really a color spectrum sensor, as they've been implementing it since the XZ1 for better color accuracy for the camera. Now, the actual choice of material on the back and the side rails actually glass and metal, though it sort of feels like it's crafted from a single piece of gemstone. Right, the 3.5mm headphone jack still here, backed with Sony's DSEE technology. And here it is, the laser-engraved Xperia logo. The last time they've been putting it at the very same spot, it should be the Z5 Premium. Now, after a decade later, they've put it right back. I must say, I do think this is the essence of the entire design. Meanwhile, it can be a controversial design choice here, the bezel on the top side and the bottom side. With the tall aspect ratio of a display on modern days phone, they've obviously shrunk the bezel down from more than a centimeter to possibly just a few millimeters over the decade. But if we compare it to the Galaxy and the iPhone, I have to agree, the thin bezel all-screen design do look striking, and we're comparing a 6.5 inches display here on the Sony to a 6.9 inches display on the Galaxy and the iPhone. So technically we're looking at a slightly smaller display, and it's a narrower phone in general. We're looking at roughly about 74mm wide on the Sony compared to 78mm across both the Samsung and the iPhone. It's a lighter phone as well. The Sony weighs about 200 grams compared to 214 on the Galaxy and 233 grams on the iPhone. The other good news is this design, as always, allows them to fit a pair of dual front-facing speakers, so your palm will never cover that bottom-firing speaker, and it does feel more balanced when you're watching a video in landscape. When it comes to display technology, however, Samsung's absolutely pushing it further once again. It's actually the first time for me to put the privacy display next to phones without it. The anti-reflective coating here on the Galaxy and the iPhone's also a great bonus. Alright, speaking of the display, the brightness of the display here on the Sony, as you might have been worrying about, for HDR content here on the iPhone and the Galaxy as well, they can actually go all the way up to 2000 nits on the entire display. While here on the Sony, surprise, it sustains at roughly about 2400 nits. Now, I must say, it's really difficult to tell the difference for anything above 1800 nits. Though here it is, we're losing the 4K resolution. In return, we're having a much brighter display here. Right, performance and heat control. Now, normally we won't be digging that deep into it in a camera comparison video, so especially for the Sony, it's actually a meaningful upgrade, and the improvement shown is definitely worth noticing. Right here, we have a quick Geekbench 6 benchmark. Performance output on the Xperia 1 Mark 8 is basically on a par with any modern 2026 flagships. Right, gaming performance, here we have 3D Mark Solar Bay with ray tracing support. Graphics performance here on the Sony is actually now on a par with any other modern flagships again. And if you're wondering if the Sony is still generating a lot of heat this year and causing the device to slow down, here I'm running AnTuTu benchmark 4 times in a row. That's basically a 1 hour long heavy-duty stress test. Performance-wise, they've clearly figured out how to keep the device cool enough while not sacrificing performance output. And just to confirm the device is not overheating in everyday use, here I've done a 1 hour long 4K video recording test. Now, I've used a camera to record these 3 phones recording 4K videos across the hour. Now, after 1 hour 4K video recording, the temperature of the back of the iPhone is now reaching about 44 degrees Celsius, 43.7 degrees to be exact. Similar story here on the Galaxy is reaching about 44 degrees. I must say anything below 50 degrees Celsius is only warm to touch at most. Now here, the Sony is well controlled at around 41 degrees Celsius. Well done, Sony. Over the years, they've finally completely solved any overheating related issues. And all 3 of them still smooth to scroll around after 1 hour of continuous 4K video recording. Alright, the major highlight of this video, the cameras. we're having a triple camera setup here on the Sony and the iPhone. Now, the telephoto camera here on the Xperia 1 Mark VIII is definitely the major upgrade this year, with the sensor size that's almost 4 times larger than the previous generation, now reaching 1/1.56 inch. Looking through a 70mm lens, they've taken away continuous zoom this year, though a prime lens might actually means sharper images and more reliable tracking focus. While here on the Galaxy, we've got the same old 3x telephoto in between the 1x and the mighty 5x telephoto. And on the iPhone, they've switched to a 100mm 4x lens this year with a larger sensor as well, though there's nothing in between, so basically you'll be relying on the main camera with digital zoom for anything in between. Now, this is what I mean. Low-light portrait used to be the weakest point of a Sony Xperia phone, now at 70mm range. Compared to digital zoom on the iPhone and the 3x lens on the Galaxy, the photo coming out of the Xperia's absolutely breathtaking is brighter, sharper, and cleaner with next to no digital noise. Right, it would certainly be a totally unfair test if we're only comparing it to 3x zoom on the iPhone and the 3x lens on the Galaxy, now switching to the 4x lens on the iPhone and the 5x telephoto on the Galaxy. In terms of the level of details and sharpness of the image, it would be a much closer competition. While the colors appears to be slightly more muted on the Galaxy, of course you can always push everything up in post. Meanwhile, the iPhone also captured natural skin tone and great contrast, though digital noise seems to be slightly more pronounced here. Now look at the Sony. We're using the native 70mm range here, though the color depth and the contrast, the skin tone and the sharpness of the image are spot on. This time around under broad daylight, but I'll be throwing a much more challenging scene at them. There's a metal wire fence on the right and plenty of leaves and greenery behind me. Sony's finally nailed it this time around. Congratulations! Edge detection and bokeh renderings now among the best, if not the absolute best. While I do notice the skin tone appears to be brightened up and elevated with a cooler tone on the Sony, but it can also be related to the colors of the clothing and the lighting. Here, using the telephoto lens, white balance is now much closer than the previous one across the board. So this time around it appears to be slightly cooler on the shot taken with the Galaxy. It also balanced out the exposure of the entire image with brighter shadows, while both the iPhone and the Xperia are delivering greater contrast, especially the Sony this time around. Though it can also be related to the different focal lengths across the board, leading to slightly different photo composition. This time around is close to sunset during dusk hours. I would say we're not giving them a generous amount of light. Right, we're just comparing 1x, the main camera. Now look at the colors. The Galaxy is definitely delivering natural and realistic colors, while here on the Xperia is a brighter image in general. And look at the trousers and the clothing, the micro contrast and the vibrancy of the colors. That's really impressive. Alright, the last one we have here for portrait mode photography, we're using 2x zoom on the main camera. I would say the skin tone and color reproduction across the board is actually pretty similar, and we're looking at top-notch edge detection and bokeh rendering across the board, even on the Sony, finally. Alright, it's time to take them out for a more thorough camera comparison. We'll be having city lights, natural landscape including super macro shots, all the way to extreme low light, and we'll certainly be looking into the telephoto lens there. Alright, to start off with, here we have a pretty standard low light scene. So we're actually looking at a pretty complex lighting situation here. On one side we have an architecture, it's bouncing off the lights from every angle. On the other hand you have a spiral staircase which is made out of metal on the surface. It's bouncing off some lights as well, though due to the curvature of the architecture. As you can see here, the shot taken with the Sony's got greater contrast, which can be a good thing, while that might depend on your personal preference. So if we take a closer look here, the color depth and the texture of the light, the reflection of light on the Sony, in my opinion, it totally deserves a round of applause. And we're looking at a shot taken with the ultra-wide lens here. Another shot taken with the ultra-wide lens here. Now for this kind of low-light scenes, the iPhone tends to deliver a slightly warmer white balance. Now here on the Galaxy, photos are generally brighter, more vibrant with less noise. While once again the Xperia delivered a photo with great color contrast and depth. Noise control here is also top-notch. In my opinion, that might be related to the 1/1.56 inch large sensor on the ultra-wide lens, together with raw multi-frame processing this time around. Take this shot for example as well, it's got really accurate color reproduction. The Galaxy is giving a brighter image overall. While if compared to the iPhone, the image here on the Sony appears to be smoother with better noise control. They are doing a really great job in capturing all the light reflection as well. Just look at the reflection on the glass surface. Now, I do indeed really like this architecture, though the main reason for me to keep using this building to do our photo comparisons mainly due to the curvature of the glass surface. In terms of dynamic range, finally the Sony is among the best. It actually did an even better job than the iPhone here. Now here's the biggest highlight of this video. It could be due to the larger sensor on the ultra-wide lens on the Sony, or due to raw multi-frame processing. I was thrilled by the image quality coming out of the Sony this time around. It's got absolutely a plausible noise control, color depth and micro-contrast rendering. The curved glass surface here on the building appears to be curved on the Sony. Now we're only comparing the ultra-wide lens and the difference is already huge. Not so much for daytime photography, or is it? Most of the time I do notice the iPhone tends to give slightly lower color saturation compared to the Sony. Sony is somewhat in the middle in this comparison, while the Galaxy tends to give brighter and more saturated photos. While if we look at the reflection of light once again in the shadows area, the texture of the reflection of light, the Sony truly excels here. Moving on to the main camera, which you might be using most of the time, here we have a 50 megapixels one on the Sony, a 48 megapixels sensor on the iPhone, and a 200 megapixels one on the Galaxy. If you're doing a lot of crop, the Galaxy definitely leaves you with room for that. Well, here we have a comparison comparing photos shot in auto mode at 12 megapixels. Most of the time, they do produce similar level of details and actual sharpness of the images from scenes to scenes. The difference will only appear when you're pointing them towards scenes with complex lighting. The very same shot here, but taken with the main camera, once again the Galaxy tends to give a more well-balanced and brighter photo, while once again the iPhone's given us a photo with warmer white balance and greater contrast. Now, the Xperia, I've definitely taken more than a couple of dozens of shots across all three of them. The conclusion I've made is, you'll be getting very different results whenever you're pointing them towards scenes with direct light source and with great contrast. As you can see here, the shadow is darker on the Xperia, which it should be. You can see all the depth and the life of the light here on the Sony. HDR is definitely there, making it usable for an average user, including me myself, though it's definitely not overly done. The light here is almost like bleeding out from the light source. Not overexposed, but it's more like the diffusion of light. Similar story here even when it comes to the telephoto lens. I wouldn't dare to take a photo like this with previous generation of Xperia phones due to obvious reasons. Now it does it really well this time around. Now, in the upcoming shot, I'll be pointing the camera towards a direct light source, and the water here is acting like a mirror reflecting all the lights from it. Right, for this particular photo, I was using 5.8x here on the Sony, the 5x telephoto lens on the Galaxy, and the 4x camera on the iPhone. In terms of low light performance and dynamic range, I'm really glad to announce the Sony is finally on a par with the other two. In the meantime, I'm really surprised by the contrast of light here rendered by the Sony, like the shadows are darker and the highlights are once again brighter. It also comes with less noise, it's a cleaner photo in general. Alright, super macro photography is also worth comparing, as some of you guys have been asking for, so let's be as fair as possible here first. I'll be taking a few steps back, accommodating the closest focal distance of the telephoto lens across all three of them. Here's a photo shot on the 5x lens on the Galaxy, the 2.9x lens 70mm lens on the Sony, and the 100mm lens on the iPhone. The key is the color depth and contrast of light once again. The curvature of the petals and the entire structure is perfectly captured here on the Sony. It's really surprising for a phone to be able to do this. Take this shot for example as well. The photos coming out of the iPhone and the Galaxy is obviously brighter and sharper at first glance. In fact, most of my friends which I've surveyed did pick the Galaxy. I do agree the photo here is much brighter and more vivid. Though if we pay enough of attention at the micro contrast and once again color depth as well, the Sony is doing really great here. What do you think? Right, the upcoming one might look a bit boring, so what we will be paying great attention to is here. At some point, I'm actually pretty glad that Sony is moving back to a more traditional prime lens. It's reliable, images are sharp, and just a few more seconds for us to appreciate the color depth and micro contrast here on the tree trunks and all the leaves here. What actually captured my attention is here, the optical quality of the telephoto lens this time around. In a moment, we'll be looking into not only the sharpness of the main subject, but also the smoothness of the background. Same as the previous ones, as we're comparing the quality of the telephoto lens here, I'll be locking the focus onto a nearby subject that is roughly about a meter away, which is the nearest focal distance of the iPhone. Right, the 5x lens here on the Galaxy can actually lock onto subjects that is roughly about 50 centimeters away, which is not bad at all. Now, this is what I've been trying to explain all along. The optical quality of the 70mm lens here on the Xperia 1 Mark VIII is truly breathtaking. We're cropping in directly from 70mm, not the 5.8x, but 2.9x instead. As you can see here, the main subject is really sharp. At the same time, the optical quality of the lens is really great, as we can see the background here, the shallow depth of field, due to the larger sensor size and the f2.8 aperture here. Also thanks to the prime lens this time around, the bokeh effect, the optical bokeh effect here is truly creamy and smooth, like coming out of a DSLR or mirrorless camera from Sony their own. Now, the Galaxy is actually doing a pretty great job here as well. Thanks to the new all-lens-on-prism design they've got this year on the 5x lens. Now, for close-up shots like this, you can actually use the ultra-wide lens here on both the Galaxy and the iPhone. That might actually give you better results. I've tried that on the Xperia as well, it works. But I would say you would definitely want to try out the 15cm focus distance on the telephoto lens. Now, as we're almost touching the flower here on the iPhone and the Galaxy, they in fact also produce really sharp and usable super macro shots. The main difference here, I would say, is the background blur effect and the compression rate of the photo. As we're using the telephoto lens here on the Sony, that would naturally give you that sort of tele-macro look. So once again, I reckon many of you might pick the photo shot on the Galaxy is brighter and is more vivid, saturated. What do you think? Comment below. And here, once again, we'll be comparing image quality out of the telephoto camera. So once again, I'll have to take a few steps back here, accommodating the nearest focus distance on all of them. It's actually pretty fascinating to see, even though we're comparing a photo shot at 70mm on the Xperia 1 Mark VIII, which is 2.9x, to photo shot at 5x on the Galaxy and 4x on the iPhone. The level of details across all three of them is actually pretty similar. Once again, I'll have to give some applause to Sony for the natural background blur effect and noise control. And this is how it looks like if we're using the 5.8x in-sensor zoom here on the Xperia 1 Mark VIII, compared to the 4x on the iPhone and the 5x lens on the Galaxy. Not bad, it's actually good this year. Speaking of zoom, let me put it this way. As I've been using the phone for quite some time now, let's take a look at here. The maximum zoom range on the Xperia 1 Mark VIII is actually 17.5x, which is 420mm. Fun fact, I've actually tried taking photos at 17.5x zoom. The phone actually read that as 140mm. At this point, Sony might be actually telling us the truth. Anything beyond 140mm would be purely digital crop, no AI at all. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? In my opinion, it will certainly require some time for the majority of the users out there to get used to it, or maybe they never would. Here's a shot taken at 10x zoom. Now, the Galaxy is absolutely doing a better job here when it comes to long-range zoom. From daytime all the way to low light, obviously the photo here shot at 10x on the Galaxy is way sharper than that shot on the Xperia. Now, when it comes to the telephoto, it's an interesting take here by Sony. Based on my real-life experience and all the photos I've shot with it, I personally don't treat it as a super zoom camera. If we're comparing photos shot at 10x, 20x and possibly 50x, the Sony will definitely easily be kicked out of the comparison. What it does best is capturing the dynamics of lights and shadows at its optical ranges. And it's time for the moment of truth. We're bringing it here for an ultimate low-light comparison. I would certainly not be doing it if it was 2 to 3 years ago. The Sony wouldn't be cutting it for sure. This time around, however, now the Galaxy is once again producing a brighter and more vivid photos, which many would like. So here, Sony is doing its magic again. The highlights brighter and the shadows darker. The colors here actually pops as well. Now here's a photo shot at 2x, which is the in-center zoom range of the main lens. Once again, the photo shot on the Galaxy is much brighter at first glance. So if I'm looking at it later on a large screen TV, the Sony actually captured almost like every drop of water moisture there surrounding the bridge. The algorithm's not clearing out the fog. Now at 3x, now we're using the 4x lens on the iPhone, not doing digital crop here. Right, the 3x lens on the Galaxy is not meant for this, I'm certainly well aware of this. The key is Sony's once again delivered a photo with great contrast and colors with depth. At 5.8x, the in-center zoom range on the Xperia, compared to the 5x lens on the Galaxy, not bad at all. Low-light performance is now actually comparable. It's true that the photos shot on the iPhone and the Galaxy might perceive to be brighter, but that might also due to they're actually putting great effort in bringing up the brightness of the shadows. And finally, we have a photo shot at 10x in extreme low light. Once again, I won't be recommending you to zoom across the 5.8x mark on the Sony. That would be purely digital crop. It's not bad, at 10x it's usable. Finally, it definitely looks less digitally processed, though the shot taken with the Galaxy is brighter, sharper. All in all, in terms of the cameras, Sony might be actually going bold by doing less. Maybe actually not at all in terms of AI sharpening. To get the most out of it, I would recommend everyone who are using this phone to watch this exact video or planning to get one. Try as much as you can stick with the original optical focal length or the in-sensor zoom range if you have to. Anything in between and beyond would be purely digital crop. It's pure, it's natural, and it's absolutely unique. Speaking of pure, Sony is actually doing the exact same thing here, offering pure Android experience. Now look at the Galaxy. Galaxy AI, it's got basically every imaginable AI feature. It's absolutely a great bonus, especially when we're talking about the call assist feature here. Similar feature can be found here on the iPhone. Not on the Sony, however. Now, the one more step here on the Galaxy is actually got support for third-party apps as well, and they've even got a dedicated mode and app for instant live translate. So here's what I've found using Google Gemini. Can you help me translate? How do I get to the entrance of the museum to Japanese?
どう行けばいいですか? 博物館の入り口にはどう行けばいいですか?
Now, the Sony is not even preloaded a voice recorder app. That's a really pure Android experience. Now, you might have to find one and download one from Google Play Store. Now, in terms of AI transcript, that's built in for free on the Galaxy and the iPhone. I've found similar service through third-party apps, so that require a subscription. Now, here's the thing, you can actually save and export the transcript to the built-in Note app here on the Galaxy and the iPhone as well. Sony hasn't even got one, though Google Keep Note is always just a few taps away on Google Play Store. And thanks to Google Gemini, you can always do the same summary and generative AI stuff here.
Summary of the text. Product and redesign. The text discusses the release of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VIII.
The same story is repeating itself when it comes to photo editing as well. You've got it. You've got all the fancy photo editing tools on the built-in gallery app on the Galaxy, every imaginable AI tool. Here on the Sony, they don't even have their own album app, not anymore. So Google Photos actually pretty well integrated to the system here. Now, if you're wondering if the stock AI magic eraser tool here on Google Photos actually better or worse than Galaxy AI, now let's try to remove the passerby. In this case it was me. The iPhone's actually done a pretty great job here removing the passerby. In this case it was me. So the texture and the structure of the metal gate is not that perfectly generated as that on the Sony and the Galaxy. Now Google Photos actually pretty good. Now let's try another photo with even more complex texture in the background. Once again, the iPhones actually did an alright job here. Now I must say, Google Photos also just a few taps away on the Apple App Store. So no one's losing, you have Google Photos as a backup on all phones. It's actually generating very similar results compared to the best of the best in the market, Galaxy AI. This time around, let's say there's a passerby standing right in front of the sculpture that you're trying to take a photo of. Now the Galaxy has actually generated another sculpture replacing me. It's got some creativity there. Now Google Photos actually not bad at all, it generated a usable photo, though I doubt if it's actually like this in real life. Alright, back to a more reasonable use case scenario. Now the Galaxy can actually recognize all the passerby and we can then remove them with just one click, even the shadows cast by them. We'll have to select each one of them one by one on Google Photo. The good news is, it works. The interesting bit is here, the photo generated by Google and the one by Samsung's actually surprisingly close to each other, while here on the iPhone, for some reasons it's blurring it out. Now when it comes to the AI features, the interface on the Galaxy is absolutely more easy to use compared to the Sony. However, if you're not using it that much from the very beginning, now Sony isn't developing anything in that area when it comes to generative AI. Google Photos always there for you and it's not bad at all. Here's another new feature on the Galaxy. Whenever you've got an idea, just simply go into the stock gallery app. It actually allows us to edit a photo based on a prompt. We can even merge two images to one and based on a prompt, guiding it how exactly you want it to be. Now let's check how similar the results would be using Google Gemini, if at all. You'll have to select both the images here that you will want to merge into one. I've given them the exact same prompt here. Surprise! Google Gemini is actually getting better every day, and the results here are actually pretty similar across the board. I must say though, the interface on the Galaxy is much more welcoming and easy to use. Alright, here's what Sony's implemented AI for photography and videography. Auto-framing is actually a pretty good one. Now I was placing the phone horizontally. Now it integrates Sony's eye tracking and follows it. It will simultaneously give us the original 4K video that is in landscape. At the same time, it gives us a cropped video in Full HD with the auto-framing feature, and that's a video in portrait. And this feature now works on all the 3 lenses here on the Xperia. And the Galaxy is the only other phone on the market right now that offers similar feature. Alright, 4K 120, you'll be able to do that on the main camera as well as the ultra-wide lens here on the Galaxy. You'll be able to do this on the main camera here on the iPhone, while here on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VIII, you'll be able to do this on all the 3 lenses again. With a larger sensor here now on the telephoto lens, it certainly helps. There's a downside here though, you'll only be able to record video in HLG and HDR format, as well as Sony's Touch S Cinetone for mobile here. That will give you a flatter tone but with a cinematic look with minimal post-editing required. Now both the Galaxy and the iPhone allow us to shoot in log with higher bitrate. Right, so this is it, a thorough comparison between the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VIII, Galaxy S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you did. See you all next time.